And here we are again for another week. Zanita, we missed everybody last week.
I know there was to inform everyone, I think there was a miscommunication between Jared and I. We ended up contacting about 20 people and they were all like, we'll come on next week. So we had to choose the best.
We did choose the best, and we will bring her on right now. It's Dr. Christiana. Christiana, we used to work together at Adventist Media for a little while. It's great to have you on today. It's great to see you. Can you just tell our audience a little bit about you and what you do?
So I am currently working as a director in the health department for the Greater Sydney Conference in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and I also work part-time as a consultant with Elia Wellness, and which is a health brand that, you guys should check it out if you don't know anything about Elia Wellness, www.eliawellness.com. And so my background has been in medical research before in the past, in inherited heart disease and hypertension. And so now I'm really looking into more public health, community health, and it's been fun so far.
And it says on your email that you are certified, let me get this right, lifestyle medicine professional. Can you tell us in a nutshell what lifestyle medicine is?
Oh, right. Okay. Yes. So lifestyle medicine is really a medicine that looks into the concept and understanding of lifestyle. So the application of lifestyle that is in conjunction with conventional medicine. And so it's applying some of the lifestyle principles that can actually really help in bringing healing to those who are struggling with health. Particularly chronic lifestyle diseases, but also for prevention. It's also really important. And so, yes, it's a very, I think it's growing more and more in terms of its awareness today.
We are looking today at the Sabbath and how that is beneficial to our health. We often think of it as beneficial in many ways, but maybe that's one thing we sometimes miss. Can you tell us how that kind of fits into your practice and your job?
Yes, good question. Because I tell you what, I guess, me working for the Seventh-day Adventist institution and myself as a Seventh-day Adventist, Sabbath is very much something that's a part of me, but also a part of the community that I am in. And I really believe that Sabbath has been really a gift for mankind, and it is something that God has given to us as a form of recharging. And sometimes when we are working in ministry, it can actually be difficult sometimes to even switch off. I have found that, and sometimes like the Sabbath day, the 7-day Sabbath, can be the busiest days of the week, or maybe not necessarily the busiest day, but a busy day when you're serving and when you're connecting with others.
So they say an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but what about the Sabbath a week? Does the Sabbath a week keep the doctor away? How does, maybe we'll start broad and then narrow down to some specifics in terms of, because it seems odd to me that a specific day designated a specific name could be beneficial to my health. Like, how does Sabbath benefit my health?
Yeah, good question. Because essentially what the Sabbath principle comes with taking time off from your daily labor. And if, let's say, if I go back again to the origin of where this sort of Sabbath concept is coming from, is like really from day one. At the time of creation, when God created, and then He created for 6 days, according to Genesis account in chapter 1. And then after that, He rested on the 7th day. And then later on, it's actually mentioned in the book of Exodus when Moses was given the 10 commandments, where it says that 6 days you shall labor It says, remember the Sabbath, 6 days you shall labor, and 1 day you will actually rest. And that includes you and your family, your neighbors, your strangers, the animals, the servants. So it's and I guess with this there is this time out, and this time out is something that God has given to us, and sometimes we're running, like it sort of feels like it's inefficient. Now, I didn't grow up keeping the Sabbath, so for me it was like a new concept when I first learned about it. And in fact, I was quite resistant initially in thinking about the benefits of the Sabbath, because I feel like I'm missing out. I have to put my books down. I can't work on that particular day, and it seems like I can't do these things. And there is this part where we feel like we're not being efficient when we can't actually work even on the seventh day. There is this sort of like restriction. But in essence, this understanding of time out, I have seen more and more in what people are talking about and what people are studying, that there is a human rhythm with having time out. We are designed to have that. There is a circadian rhythm, which is like a 24-hour rhythm, and then there is this circumception rhythm, which is a 7-day cycle. And so it sort of wonders, like, where is the 7-day cycle coming from? I mean, there is really nothing in nature that looks into the 7-day cycle. When we think of the year, the Earth is revolving around, like it takes 1 year, and then after that the moon revolves around the Earth. It takes a month, and there's these things that are cycled that we can see in nature. But when it comes to 7 days, it's not there. But scientists have actually looked at, there is actually a cycle even in not only just human beings but also animals, and from unicellular animal and also multicellular animals, there are these circumception rhythm, and which is something where there is a 7-day cycle in the heartbeat, in the blood pressure, in body temperature, hormone levels, even transplant rejection is every 7 days. And then we've got even mice mortality that have been infected with malaria. There is a similar cycle with like dying preferentially on the 7th and the 14th and the 21st day. So there's like this rhythm that's happening there. And you wonder, like, are we supposed to be following this rhythm? And so look, we're seeing more and more of a rise of the mental health issues, mental health cases, and where there is a need to pause and really to take that time out, especially nowadays when technology is just so at your fingertips, right? And literally you can get access to so many things instantly like that. And so this is a time when there is more and more evidence that when you take the time out, it actually allows your body to then heal, but also the body to then rejuvenate itself. So I guess I'm just giving a little bit of a taste there in terms of the possible benefits and the current what has been seen in terms of the benefits of keeping that time out on the 7th day. And even with like Loma Linda Adventists, Seventh-day Adventists who are living in Loma Linda, they live 10 years longer than the Californians who live there. And so what's the difference? And it has actually been very unique that Seventh-day Adventists not only focus on the lifestyle with diet and as well as exercise and social connection, religious observance as well, but it's also that time out, timing out from the usual thing, and where there is a way for our brain to be able to be more creative when you take yourself away from something and then you come back again into your normal routine. Even that concept itself is already, that's like, for all of us, it's common sense. But having that time out, just because of the circadian rhythm, but also the mood. There's a study that looked at the mood is increased, is a much more of a pleasant mood that people would have on the seventh day, as opposed to the rest of the other days. So it's yeah, I don't know. I've just been seeing these things in terms of the benefits that we are seeing more and more, even in organisms outside of just human beings.
Yeah, I think it's insane how you're talking about. We have obviously, we can see when it's the end of like a day by the sun and the moon and all of that. I think it's wild that animals and plants have this like 7-day cycle as well. I know that I don't know if you can speak into this at all, but I know that places like communist Russia and the French Revolution have tried to subvert the week to like a 5-day week or a 10-day week, and it just didn't work. Like people just crashed. Have you heard of any other studies like that where people have tried to change the amount of days to rest?
Yeah, well, not outside of that time period. In terms of, I think they tried the 10 days, and I think 30 days. And yeah, like you said, there's like less productivity, less efficiency, and it really just shows that we're just geared for this 7-day cycle. And yeah, and what's interesting as well, there is a study that looked at how Jews living in Israel, they tend to, there's less death on the Sabbath, on the Shabbat in Israel, which is interesting. Look, I mean, I think more studies need to be done with that particular study itself. And but there is just a paper that looked at that as an observation, that there is less death on the Shabbat compared to the rest of the other days in Israel, because a lot of them are keeping the Sabbath in that country.
So you've talked a little bit about the observable, I guess, the phenomenon that is this 7-day cycle in nature. It's unexplained. Where does it come from? What sort of, and the benefit of, I guess, taking a gap day, taking a day away from work, away from stress, away from other things. What are some of the personal, in terms of as a person keeps that Sabbath, what are some of the benefits they're going to see sort of straight away? If someone hasn't done the Sabbath sort of before, what are some things that you see like as lifestyle changes that you've seen for people? You mentioned you didn't grow up keeping the Sabbath. So what were some of the things even for yourself that you experienced, like, oh, hey, as I'm starting to do this, it made an impact in the short term?
Yes, I have found that for me, myself personally, it was something that was a journey for me to, first it was a trust journey for me to go, oh, perhaps maybe the 7-day Sabbath has there is, it's worthy to actually follow. And I think it was really more of an act of submission. And when I looked at various things in terms of creation and 6-day creation concept, and that God rested on the Sabbath, but really when it comes to what had benefited me, I realized that it wasn't taking me away from being efficient. I was working at that time. I was already working and in medical research. So I just basically took that time out, and I realized that I actually could think better when I've actually taken that time out. And I've been able to find that I could rest more, because I have a tendency to be a bit more of a workaholic. So I pushed myself quite a bit, and with that, it actually forced me, with the Sabbath concept, it forced me to take the time out, and that has made a difference in terms of relationship. I got to spend time with others more, as opposed to me, even if I may have actually been still at work or maybe doing other things. that are not necessarily allowing me to have a connection with God as well. And that is like setting aside a time when I could reflect. And we think about meditation of it being beneficial, right? Daily meditation and having that retreat. But the Bible actually talks about having that retreat every single week, and 1 day off. And so for me, that has been like a journey of like, I realized this is actually this is awesome. And then there was one time when I was studying, and I was looking at the time, and I went, okay, I'm going to study up to this point. And I'm thinking, this is a really faith journey, because I wasn't studying when I first discovered it. And then later on, I started studying again, and I literally had to go, I'll close the book and put it aside and go, I am now not going to think about uni. And I'm not going to think about my subjects. And when I came back again to it, and even when I was studying and I had to do my exams, I had to do my assignments, it wasn't necessarily, it wasn't actually interfering with my workload, or with my exams, or even my assignments. So I think there's definitely, I think for every single person, it needs to be something that they ought to try. Now, I was reading up some stuff about how there's this Jewish girl who she does a lot of these web awards, and so she has shared that she does more like a technology Sabbath, because all the time she's connecting on technology and phone, laptop, etc., and social media, and that was her thing. And so for Sabbath, she just finds that she's having a technological day off. And and there's another someone who's actually a Baptist minister, a girl, a Baptist female minister. She actually started observing the Sabbath because she was told that she's got some issues with chronic migraine, and for her, that it was just the beginning of her being able to just heal again. So I think we forget that sometimes we just need to actually switch off. But more importantly, I think it's that connection with our creator, our designer. I'm thinking of, my phone. I don't know if I'm sure all of you, everyone has gone through a time when your phone is running. I was just traveling recently, and my phone was like dying, right? And I wanted to just recharge it for a little bit, up to a point where I could still use it until I get home. So I was borrowing someone else's power, and I plugged in, and I thought maybe once it gets to 30% power, then I'm able to kind of like just keep going for the rest of the evening. And I'm thinking about power, and the need to recharge to get that maximal power. These phones are engineered to be recharged at some stage, so that there's 100% power. And I find that even with the Sabbath, it's the same. We're engineered, we're designed to have maximal power. If we're actually taking that time out on the seventh day of the week, we're getting a recharge, so that starting on the as soon as sundown, that's when it really begins. That first day of the week is we're going maximal, with just more energy, more creativity, and understanding.
Yeah, I think your experience. Yeah, it makes sense. I think it's very relatable, because I feel like so many people actually fear the Sabbath, or they don't practice it because they're thinking, I've got so much to do, I don't have time for a Sabbath or a day of rest. But what you're kind of saying is that when you take rest, your productivity improves, your memory improves, your creativity improves. Like you actually end up doing more when you take that day aside.
Yes.
Another thing I'm kind of thinking is that when we think about rest, sometimes it's a bit subjective. What is like restful for me for example, might not be restful for you. Can you give us, you kind of gave us the technology example. Can you give us some others that maybe some guidelines even as to like what kind of things can we do on the Sabbath, or what kind of things do people commonly do that might not be restful?
Yeah. Look, some of the things that, well, I personally, what I've done, and I don't know whether this is something that, and this will be subjective as well, because it's kind of my experience, is this time in nature. And there is this understanding when you spend time in nature, there's these natural killer cells that are increased, and we're able to then have better. It increases, improves, sorry, our immune system, and also our hormones. And so this is where, when we're spending time in nature, there is a benefit. So people call it forest bathing. I think it came from a Japanese sort of like concept, this forest bathing. And there's truth in this, where when we are spending more time in nature, we are able to take ourselves away into what I would call it as God's cathedral. And where you see what he has made this, right? I'm walking away from a man-made thing onto what God has made, and I'm seeing the grandeur of different things, which then allows us to think about what are some things that we can learn from nature, and what are some things that we can just reflect on in terms of his creativity, his goodness. So being in nature, it helps us physically, but also it helps us to connect and to think about our design, the designer of this nature, natural environment, and also just the connection with God. So spending the time to pause, because I have found, especially when I'm serving, like I have to preach on Sabbath, and then I have to, then sometimes we would be doing a training, doing health. Sometimes we would actually be sharing health with others. And there will be time, it's like, it's a blessing of service. So that's what we call it, a blessing of service. But I always wanted to, I made a thing, because there were times I went into a journey where I'm just so flat out, and I'm just constantly around people. And maybe because I'm also a little bit, I love being around people too, that I'm surrounded by people, but I'm not necessarily making that time out to connect with God. So I made it a thing where in the morning I spend some time with God. Sabbath morning, or even in the afternoon, I just would take myself away and go for a walk, and just talk to God, and seeing beautiful things around me. And even if there isn't much beautiful things, just pulling yourself away to just be in silence and in prayer, that's really part of meditation as well, which I think is a time when we can just pause to think about our relationship with him, as much as it's also good to build that relationship with others, especially our loved ones and friends.
Just observing the world around us, it seems like a lot of people are picking up this concept of Sabbath. If we could call it Sabbathing, people are starting to Sabbath. And it seems to be common, more popular in Christian circles outside of Seventh-day Adventism. People are picking it up. But it seems like, as you've reflected, sometimes for us as Adventists, Sabbath is the hardest day of the week, or the busiest day, or it's quite, full on. Is there a danger that we are missing the point, or losing some of the pioneering, sort of cutting edge sort of ideas around Sabbath that we had? We wanted to share Sabbath with the world. Now the world is picking it up, but maybe sometimes doing it differently or doing it better than we are. Do you think there is some, I don't know if improvements is the right word? How can we do Sabbath well if it is the busy day, or the stressful day sometimes of the week for us?
Yeah, that's a good point, Jared. I feel like for all of us, it's like a journey that we're constantly creating that improvement on how to do Sabbath well. And because it's like it's an experience, right? And from one Sabbath to another, it's different. And it can be that at times, we're not sleeping as much. And this is where how can we make sure that we're actually having enough rest? And how can we actually pause? And I can be guilty of this because I can cram in a number of things. And so I've just tried to make it that I don't have any, preferably no meetings on Sabbath. And if there is like a training where people can actually gain benefits, yes, we can do something like that. But if you can do it on a different day, where you can actually have more time to just chill out and to just relax, not having to pack things up, not having to, minimizing in terms of like food. How do we do food? I sometimes struggle with this because we want to be able to feed everyone, and we have people over at our place, and they come over, and we want to be able to, have good food together because it's time for our small group to get together, and it's a celebration. And Sabbath is always associated with celebration too. It's not necessarily, it's the most boring day, it's the most quietest day. But it's like it's a day of celebration, and so this is where you get the nice things out. But how is it that we can do it in such a way that we're not so like laboring so much? Because then we actually end up missing out. Because the Bible actually says the Sabbath was made for man. Not man was made for the Sabbath. And so the Sabbath is supposed to be beneficial for us. So how do we actually intentionally go, let me prepare some of these things beforehand so that I can then have the time out and not having to cook and labor myself over the stove. And it's like, for me, it's a continual growth of creativity and how to modify my time and talk with others and show, hey, let's do it maybe after Sabbath. Let's do it on Sunday, or let's do it on because that's a time when connection really needs to be built more rather than just the doing of it or laboring of it. As much as service is actually important, and service is a blessing, and others can be blessed, but how do we do it like so that we can prepare everything as much as we can, that we do less? I don't know about you guys. I mean, like, what do you like? How do you do?
Yeah, it's good. This is right when we like to get practical and record live. So I know that some people they consider Friday, and so they use Friday as like preparation day to like make food or to clean the house or get things ready for the weekend. Obviously that is not possible for everyone because many people work on Fridays, or Friday is just another busy day. Myself, what do I do to prepare? I don't know. I think I also try to have like my chores out of the way, or if there's like things I need to do, then I write it down on a notepad so that I don't forget to come back to it. It's kind of like the act of writing something down helps put it aside. Personally, what about you guys? What's changed your Sabbath experience?
I don't do it as much as I could, but something that has been impressed on me recently is, I guess, the idea of joy or delighting in the Sabbath, and challenged by that. So what gives me joy? I don't get much time to read like non-work related stuff. I'm always reading, editing, writing, but I don't get to just sit and read a book that I want to read, or an enjoyable, thing. So reading a book, going for a walk or something, doing some exercise, like I don't actually get a lot of time in the week. So I'm starting to be challenged in some of those areas. Like, is there a way I can bring myself joy or find delight in that day to do something that maybe others would think, hey, that's not really my thing, or that's not really relaxing, or that's not appropriate for the Sabbath. But for me, it's like, it's a release, it's a connection point, it's a helpful thing to recharge my batteries, because I'm not getting to do it during the week. So that's, I guess, something that I'm observing. I've been challenged by the digital Sabbath idea. You've mentioned it today, but also I've received an article for our publications about the idea of digital Sabbaths again. I wrote something some years ago about the concept, but for myself, it's sort of slipped away. So I'm re-looking at that. Hey, how much time do I spend on my phone, on my laptop? Can I cut that for the 24 hours and just go cold turkey? I think it's something I'd like to do, not just for myself, but for my family. I've got young kids now, and it's like, we want to not be on screens all the time. So that's something that's challenging for me. I can't say I'm fully happy with where I'm at with my Sabbathing, but I'm certainly challenged and working towards doing it better, because I think it's a really important thing for all of us, to experience and to enjoy those benefits.
Yeah.
Is there one thing in a nutshell, Christiana, that you think we can go away this week and do before we let people know about your upcoming seminar? We'll just get your response. What's something we can take with us into this week if we've watched this and we're thinking, what's my first step?
First step, I think being intentional. If you want to give it a try, be intentional, and don't let it like just happen to be that you walk into it, but plan in advance. You plan in advance for holiday, you plan in advance for like something exciting with parties, etc. So what will you plan for Sabbath? So that's something that to be intentional, and also to make it different. So you try to make it different, that you're reading something else. And how can you make it different, that it's special and it brings a connection with others, but also it brings a connection to your creator. And I think that's really, it comes back again to, it's a recharge. You're going to recharge your phone for maximum power. What's the best way to recharge physically, mentally, socially as well, but especially spiritually? I think those are kind of like what I would say as the first step. It's general, but I think it's a principle that we want to take from it, rather than us being so prescriptive that you can't do this or you ought to do this. Everyone has like a different journey, and for me, it's been a journey that you're just continually evolving and creating more and more.
Very cool. So in the South Pacific Division, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is running a promotion. I don't know if it's called a promotion, a campaign around the Sabbath gift and encouraging people to try the Sabbath. So you can go to sabbathgift.info to find out more information about that. We'll put the link in our comments. But Christiana, you're doing a seminar that's coming up is it the 7th of July?
Correct, 7th of July.
So we encourage everyone to check that out. Christiana is going to be unpacking this topic a bit more in depth. What we encourage you to do, if you're watching this and you're an Adventist, is to invite your friends to this event, because it's going to be very accessible. Christiana is going to promote some of the benefits of the Sabbath, and we'd really encourage you to check that out. And if you find the Sabbath a blessing, please comment and share here, but also get involved in the Sabbath gift promotion, because you can create content, you can create short videos about the blessing of the Sabbath and what you like and enjoy about the Sabbath in your life. And it's an opportunity for us all to get involved. So yeah, we encourage you guys to do that and to check that out this week as well. Hey, thanks, Christiana, for joining us. We really appreciate your insights, and thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys.